right, so hi everyone, my name is Christine and Tim. I'm so excited to present this keynote presentation that I think is very pertinent to this very unique and unprecedented year. Of course, you can imagine. I'm going to talk about how to build your personal brand during a pandemic. Yes, this 2020 has been crazy, but I do believe that we do need to have a moment of reflection and really think about how do we become more resilient? How do we reinvent ourselves and redefine our value to our communities? I think we live now in a world where it's more digital or more virtual. And so being able to build a personal brand during times like this will show you how to not only overcome any setbacks that this year may have brought to your life, but more importantly, be able to equip you for what's to come. Because obviously, we now live in a world where things are happening at an exponential rate, and it's very, very important that you prepare yourself for what's to come next. So I'm so excited to share this talk with you all and talk about my personal journey and building my personal brand throughout the ages and how I was able to also amplify my journey and my brand and my value to the community during this time. So I've worn several hats in the tech ecosystem, been a serial entrepreneur, but currently I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at the Global Startup Ecosystem, and we build tech communities around the world, especially in emerging market nations globally. And right now we have one of the largest tech communities to really build recruitment platforms for corporate clients globally. So we're really excited with the work that we do. And in this journey of getting to this place, I just wanted to kind of visualize where everyone's at when it comes to who we are today in 2020. I think right now the world is a lot smaller. It feels like, we're undergoing a crazy transition when it comes to this pandemic. But many times I think we overthink what the next steps is going to be. I think there's a big conversation on what the new normal is going to look like. But the reality is we won't go back to the old normal. We're going to actually have to reinvent ourselves and really see a new future and really transform how we interact with the world and how we really engage with what's around us. And so I'll start by saying that if you imagine who you were when you were young, I'm sure there's a big conversation about this, that a lot of people when we were younger, we were bolder, we were more energized, we believed in ourselves. And one of the questions that you probably received when you were a young kid is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? I'm sure you remember someone asking you this powerful question. And you probably remember what you said. I mean, of course, there were a lot of expectations. People probably, kind of like encourage you to go down certain industry verticals. But many of you might have said, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an engineer, right? Especially with people like me from my background where you go and make the big money but professional careers, so the top professions. But we live in a world now where everything's being automated. Things are changing at such a rapid pace. Now, our pioneers, the people that we want to be, is not really industry titles anymore. Now we want to be influencers. We want to be like Mark Zuckerberg. We want to be billionaires. We want to be like heads of states like Trump with charisma. We want to follow people who are literally galvanizing people around the world in unique ways. Some for good, some for bad. But the point is, we have changed how we answer that fundamental question of what we want to be when we grow up. And because we live in such an interconnected world, such a digital world as well, we're able to see the entire world right before our eyes as it unfolds. And as a result, we're able to see some of the biggest atrocities of humanity. I think we now live in a way where we want to make an impact. You want to make your mark on the world and do something worth talking about. Do something that gives you purpose. And I'm sure many of you feel this age where if you're feeling a lot of setbacks, how can you actually make an impact? But now the bar is high and we want to make a difference in the world that we live in. And so in this search for meaning, in this search for understanding and trying to comprehend your place in the world, a lot of times it might get confusing. Me, with my background in marketing and operations and business development, I'm also a coder. So I do have a techie side to me. I've built websites, I've built apps, I'm trying to build these, virtual experiences ever since 2014 when I first learned how to code. And one thing that I learned is that in this search for meaning, trying to build these ecosystems for yourself, for your community, sometimes it gets a little bit tiresome. And in those times, you got to really understand that you actually have more power in your grasp than you think. One of my favorite quotes is, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. It's one of the best quotes from the Dalai Lama. And I truly think that people need to really believe in themselves again. I think a lot of times people want a home run solution. They want to be able to make an impact in a day, overnight. But that's not the world we live in. If you follow your heart, the rest will follow. And so with that, in this search, I know many of you, when you started this year, you were ready, right? This is going to be your year of conquering. Like, this is the start of a decade. So a lot of people had some great intentions, great plans, and some really great ideas for transforming their lives, their future, their community during this year. And then guess what? This happened. A global pandemic, unprecedented, never seen anything like this in recent memory of its size. And as if overnight, the economy shut down, the world changed. I mean, we don't even travel the same way. We don't interact the same way. Seeing people like this in the street is not extreme anymore. We're now seeing a world where we're now getting normalized with seeing people being in frantic states and trying to understand the world around them. Obviously, from an economic perspective, we have high rates of unemployment. People are struggling financially. There are businesses that are going out, businesses that have been icons within our generations are leaving at a rapid scale. When we think about the world, as people like to sensationalize in the media, the world that we live in today, I want you to think about 6 feet of space. And let me repeat that one more time. Think of the 6 feet of space that you have around you. As a tech developer, as a techie in general, we understand the power of technology, and we also understand the power of the computer, the internet, Wi-Fi, and passion. You have these 3 things: your passion, your motive, and access to connectivity and opportunity. That's all you need. So we live in a world now that 6 feet of space will redefine how you're able to make an imprint on this world. And so now a lot of people are realizing, how do I actually capitalize on this trend? How do I actually leverage this year, not as a setback, but as a propellant to move me forward and really accelerate the mission I had in place, the ideas that I had in place, but more importantly, the values that I believe in. Because I think there's a lot of soul searching happening right now. And you need to ask yourself, are you in the right time? Are you watching the right trends? Are you looking at the changing culture and technology happening around you? I know for one, there's a lot of media sensation around the future of work, 5Gs, automation. There's a lot of fear. There's always fear when it comes to change, because change is scary. But change is a common thing. If you get used to change, you're prepared for any scenario. And keep in mind, evolution is always scary, but we do evolve. And you need to evolve. And you need to see that evolution happening right before your eyes. And I, as someone who is a big proponent of technology and seeing the interconnection with human history, humans are very predictable. And I know you might not want to hear this, but you are very predictable. People can actually foresee how people react to certain type of news categories and how people will engage with certain information. So if you know humans are predictable, you know change scares people, why not just embrace it? And don't try to just follow the herd. Try to figure out what's your inner voice and try to be different. Now, one joke I have about what's happening around the world is I feel like the real apocalypse for people is these 4 things: not having access to Wi-Fi, having a slow loading time, battery running out, or not getting access to really good data connection. This is the 4 horsemen of the modern apocalypse. I'm sure you guys have heard this tech joke before within the community. This is what scares people like you and me the most. And because now we live in the world, like I said before, all you need is 6 feet of space, your heart, and a computer or some type of tech access, and you are ready to unleash your love and your energy and your power onto the world. That's all you need. And these are the tools for doing that. And so with that said, I think right now in this pandemic and this scare, we just need to reconnect with how we see technology and reconnect to seeing the power of seeing that the world is a smaller place. And when the world is a smaller place, it might seem scarier because things are a lot closer to home, especially with the way the media describes what's happening in real time. But the world is a small place, which means you can make a bigger impact a lot sooner than you think. And so when you think about this question that we started this conversation with, what do you want to be when you grow up? How would you answer that question today? How will you actually engage with someone? And personally, in my journey and my story, I don't think I really had an answer ever since I was a little girl, but I do know that my connection with street markets and street vendors was a big part of my journey into getting into the tech space, but more importantly, into finding my true calling in this world that has so many complexities now that it's very easy to get deterred. So in 2010, I'm sure you heard about the earthquake that killed 250,000 people in Haiti. It's my home country. My accent obviously is American, but I'm very much Haitian. And this was my home. This was literally my community, my country. But when I think about what happened that year, there were more images, powerful images of people being resilient, people reinventing themselves. Look at the street vendor using pretty much stone from the rubble to uplift her products to go right back to business the very next day. That says a lot about her character and how she defines tragedy. We live in a year where it feels like there's almost tragedy all around us. There's so much happening. It's scary. But how do you leverage tragedy? How do you leverage setbacks? How do you leverage uncertainty to move yourself forward and impact the people that matter to you? I personally resonated with street vendors because I also was a street vendor. I street vended with my family. All the women in my family were street vendors, so I'm very proud to be a part of such a dynamic group of powerful women who amazingly, was able to really build a family just through street vending alone. And of course, I built a passion around this. And my first tech company was really digitizing the street market economy. And of course, I realized that, close to 2 billion people around the world make a living in street markets. And this is something that for me, when I started to travel and build myself in emerging markets around the world, I started becoming a thought leader around emerging market communities and how we could connect them to tech platforms to connect within the tourism industry, within local economies. And it really got a lot of momentum. I was able to meet heads of states, media moguls, billionaires. But it goes back to when you are in your, I would say, like in your mojo, when you're in your space, when you're in a realm where you're living your best life because you're following your passion, it resonates with people. You attract that energy. You attract that, feedback loop from community members that you never would have expected. And during these years, when I was meeting many of these influencers, personally, I was going through a lot of tragedy, right? I was going through a lot of transitions in my personal life, but I took each opportunity, each step back as a way to keep growing, keep getting more resilient. So with that, I would say that during that time period, my first company made the Forbes list. My company is actually a Harvard Business Case Study review. And so I would say that, there's a lot of opportunity in bringing back your energy to the places that matter to you. And as I stated before, I'm a proud Haitian. So my passion has always been, tech has been a big part of changing my story and my narrative. How do I apply this to a nation? And we think of like places like Haiti, this is probably the images that circulates on the internet. So tech could be a powerful tool for good, but also could present negative narratives about communities that matter most. And this is the way I leverage technology to showcase Haiti to the world and build a tech hub in the first Black republic of the Caribbean and of the world. And many times when people say, why are you using technology to build a tech hub in Haiti? Because they have so many negative implications about the country. I say Haiti may not be open for business, but Haiti is definitely open for disruption. And so you have to have that passion and love and drive to push yourself. And now it's not only the biggest and leading event in the country, but the #1 tech summit conference in the entire Caribbean, right? And so this is something that's obviously exploded. My background, I'd be in the chief marketing officer of Global Startup Ecosystem. That one vision to bring this vision of building tech hubs in my home country of Haiti has expanded already to 23 different countries. This year, we're in 30 different markets already. Last year, we galvanized 75,000 people in building tech hubs of the future in emerging markets from Nigeria to Ghana to Saudi Arabia. This vision is still carrying forth, and I'm very pleased to see that we had such an amazing networks of celebrities, pioneers, and billionaires join us on this journeys from partners. I'm very proud of what we built in building the global startup ecosystem, the world's first and largest digital accelerator. If you Google us, of all names to call our company, but it really encompasses what we're trying to bring together and how we're able to bridge the tech divide of the future through technology. So this is my world. And so now I'm going to share with you really quickly the strategies I leverage personally to build my personal brand throughout my career journey, to build my my vision in markets that matter to me most, but more importantly, to really reinvent myself, be resilient, and redefine my value to my communities, or at least the communities that matter most to me in my heart. And so with that, I want to start by saying, first and foremost, you are built for this. When everything is gone, all you have is your story. And so I want to elaborate on this. I share with you my story, right? But a lot of times you might think your story is not unique, but to the, our audience that never met you before, it's a way for them to connect. And so in this pandemic, you do have to have some soul searching to think about what was your journey before all of this happened. And how are you going to learn from your experiences to take you to the next level? One of my favorite quotes is, be yourself because everyone else is taken. So yourself could be quirky, stubborn, resilient, like fun, bubbly, whatever that is. I mean, a lot of people say, even though I'm very Haitian American, I have that New York swag in me where I just say it like it is. I'll tell people what I feel. Be yourself, because people receive that authenticity, and we live in a world of transparency. So people connect and vibe with that. Even if they're not prepared for it, they can appreciate that it's real. And sometimes that's all that matters. Second, very important, avoid projectors. The reality does not define your destiny. And this is what I mean by this. A lot of times when people think that they weren't successful in some type of endeavor, or maybe there were pioneers before you that tried and failed, they assume that you won't be able to be the person that makes the actual home run in that space. But again, someone's lack of success or someone's milestone is no reflection of your capacity. And I think in this pandemic, I see a lot of people starting new businesses. I see a lot of people, building their personal brands. I see a lot of techies, just trying new things. Keep experimenting, keep pushing yourself beyond your borders and your boundaries, because you just never know what version of yourself that you reveal to yourself. And, I love my quotes, and one Chinese proverb I love the most is, the person who says that it cannot be done should not interrupt the person who's actually doing it. So don't let people tell you what is possible. You need to show people what's possible. And if you fail in the process, you show them that you can still keep learning, keep growing, and get right back up. So very important to really define that in your life. 3, time is the most important currency. And this is something that I've learned that, as we live in a world where the dollars and the currencies, we saw economic fluctuations through the roof this year. And one thing that I realized, that if you really think about the most important commodity right now, is time. How you use your time, how you make decisions. I think I'm in a phase in my life right now where I say no a lot more. It takes a lot for me to say yes to certain things now, because I really want to leverage my time, not just to accelerate my mission and my business and my project, but just to have time with my family, just to have time with people that matter to me. And I think you need to define how you leverage your time based on what you want, not what society needs. And I think with social media, like mental health is now becoming an epidemic. I think suicide rates are at an all-time high. And it's because people are not using their time the way they want to use their time. So understand the power of seeing how the world is changing. I think, you guys feel this, if you think about the way the work culture has changed overnight during this pandemic, we are from factories to cubicles to co-working spaces and now remote work. And I genuinely believe that I think people are now not finding the ability to create boundaries between home and work life. You got to create those boundaries, because just because now we're all working remotely does not mean that you're available 24/7. I've seen situations where people are emailing people on the weekends expecting a reply. I say no. There are boundaries. I have my home life, I have my work life, and I may integrate them every once in a while. Sometimes I bring my kids to my summit program. Sometimes I engage them on my conversations. But you got to create those boundaries because you're living your life and you need to live it in a way that you define it to be. So, really creating routines around what you define it to be and really understand the power of time and how you leverage it and capture the moments because, again, you're not going to remember every single moment that you've experienced during the pandemic. I don't know if many of you are doing this, but I highly suggest that you keep a journal of your experience this year because 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, when your great grandkids ask you, so this 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, what was it like? You're probably going to remember how you felt. You're probably going to remember the high level experiences, but you're probably not going to remember the details that shaped your mind, your perspective, and your framework during this year, during this pretty much unprecedented year. So take the moment to capture your journey, capture your experiences. You won't regret it because years from now, you want to relive even the bad and the good, but you want to see who you are during this moment because it's going to reveal a lot about your journey and growth post this 2020 year. And finally, keep at the work. And one thing I would say is that legends come from humble beginnings. So focus on what speaks to your heart first, and the rest will align. And so this is something that's very important to me because I think a lot of times when we look at social media, all the successful people, I feel like they don't want to give real advice anymore. I'm sure you feel this. But they all say, follow your passion, which is so generic. I actually have a TED Talk called Pattern of Small Moves. You can look it up on TED Talks. And I talk about my frustration with people who have actually have a successful path and refuse to actually really give people sincerity, vulnerability. I've shared my highs and lows with people because I want people to be able to see the growth and the journey to where I got there. And so one thing I would say, if people don't want to tell you the truth, follow your patterns, follow your journey, see what makes you tick, see what makes you grow. And sometimes don't underestimate the small activities that are happening in your life because you never know the huge impact they will have on your future. Again, with the quotes, I love this one. No trumpet sound when the most important decisions of your life are made. Destiny is made known silently. One of my favorite quotes because a lot of times we think that we're making this job choice. This is the landmark decision that I made that's going to change my future. You don't know. It might even be what type of breakfast you eat every morning, and that changes your future. It might be the fact that you walk down a certain path every morning before you get to work. You don't know the micro decisions you're making in your life that will have a huge impact on your destiny, your future, and your growth. And so don't shortchange the daily routine mediocre things that you might find in your everyday life because I promise you every part of your journey is important. If you embrace every moment like it's your last, you will appreciate the fact that you're breathing, that you're here, and you're pushing forward. So never forget the important decisions are not always the big ones. Sometimes it's the micro ones that you make every day. And finally, be bold. I personally think permission is overrated. I don't really go for permission. I really ask for mercy after because at the end of the day, you got to just take a leap of faith. You never know where your boundaries lie until you actually push them. So you push and you put yourself out there. And what's the most that you're going to lose? A little bit of embarrassment? Maybe it's from my personality, I could care less, about other people's opinions to a certain extent. So I know that's a personality trait of mine. But I do know some of my best experiences were the ones that I went for it because I didn't let anyone's perceptions, decisions, and their opinions hold me back. So be bold, go for it. And keep in mind, it's all about your perspective. One of my last and favorite quotes is that normal is an illusion. What is normal for the spider is actually chaos for the fly, which means one thing I want you to end with when looking at this year, this 2020 year, is that it's all about your perspective. Two people could be going through the same hardship, the same experience, but it's different perspectives that get one on the other side of that journey, right? And so your perspective is all how you look at the world. Really monitor your perspective and your health because if you always think that the glass is half full or half empty, you're not going to see the opportunities that await for you. So definitely always think about the world as being this small place that is now more accessible, which means you have more things that you could do to really make an imprint on this world. And with that, I really hope that you take this year of reflection. There's so much happening during this 2020 year. Me as a techie, I feel like I'm able to do so much this year, but take the time to understand that building your personal brand is not just about the marketing. It's not just about the monetization or the speaking and engagements, because I know you probably thought that that's what I was going to focus on today. Building your personal brand is about creating everlasting value. That when you're not in the room, people think of you and see your value and know about what you bring to the table, and that it defines your character in a way that people want to connect. And at the end of the day, it's an evolving evolution, right? Evolve, be resilient, reinvent yourself, and redefine who you want to be going forward. And I wish you the very best for 2020 and beyond. All the best.